In this video, I want to go over a web browser known as the Opera GX browser. And if you found this video on YouTube, I will provide a link below that has information about the browser and how you can install it on your system. Now before I actually open up the browser, let's first take a look at what the browser is and some of its features, and then we'll compare it with the actual original Opera browser with the Opera GX browser. The Opera GX browser is a browser built specifically for gamers. Does that mean only gamers can use the browser? No. It's built for improving your browser experience, so anyone can use it. However, you'll notice there's a lot of links that's related to the games, and there's a lot of features that people that play online games will use when they use the browser, and this is built into it, so it saves people that does online gaming. Instead of tweaking a browser, it comes with a lot of the tweaks pre-installed. Now here's the link to the actual Opera GX web browser. So if you click on this, you can see the different browsers which they have, and if I click this link, it will download the deb file for my operating system. In this case, if you're using Windows, it will download an executable file, and if you're using a Mac, it will download the installation file for your system. If you don't want to choose the actual version, as you can see, it has a penguin because I am using a Linux operating system, so it will detect the type of operating system and choose the download file here. And if you want something different, you can choose here, or you can click here and choose a different download. Like if you're on a Windows system and you want to download it for a Linux system and put it on a thumb drive, carry it to a Linux system, you can click here and choose a different platform. If you're on a Linux system and you don't want to install the native package, you can either install it from FlatHub, there's a link here, or the Snap package that you can click here. There's a lot more information, and I'm not going to go over it all. For those of you that want to take the time to learn more about the browser, you can click on this link here and it will give you a lot of information that you won't find on my webpage. I'm not going to go through and read all of the features of it, but there's lots and lots of features. The key thing is there's a lot of themes, and the default themes are actually themes that look like something that a gamer would have on his or her system. It has built-in messengers, and it has a video pop-out, like if you're on YouTube and you change tab from YouTube, the little video will pop out where you can still watch it while you're using another tab. It has a built-in ad blocker that you can turn on. I think it's turned on by default, but I turned it off because I installed a different ad blocker, and I'll talk more about that in a few moments. It has a built-in free VPN, and you can get additional extensions to install on it using the Google Chrome Web Store. Now, it can be installed on Windows. You can click this link, a Mac or Linux, and if I click the Linux link, this is not the original home screen. Here you got the choice between the deb file, the RPM, and FlatHub. There's not a link here to Snap, but if you click the original link I showed you from the original home page, there is a link to the Snap package that you can install on your system. Now, there was one problem I had by downloading the current version of the deb package. I'm using an older version of Ubuntu, which I'm using Ubuntu Mate 24.04, the long-term support, which now there should be a Ubuntu Mate 26.04, but the lead developer of Ubuntu Mate stepped down, and the people that took over, they really didn't have time to come up with a newer long-term support, so there's no long-term support for the Ubuntu Mate. That's not to say that there won't be any future versions, and Ubuntu will still support the Ubuntu 24.04, so I'm not worried that I'm not getting the updates or security from my Ubuntu system. However, when I do download some of the most current installation package, because I'm using some of the older operating system, it has some of the older dependencies, so it came up with this error saying that I do have an older version of this dependency file that's needed. So I didn't want to force it and go out and install that file, because I may break something that's needed on other applications or the operating system myself. So one way that I fixed that problem and still installed it by using the original native package, which is the deb package, is I installed it using the package manager. So if you're using an older version of Ubuntu or any older version of Linux and it gives you an error message when you download the original installation file, my recommendation is use the Synaptic Package Manager. It will go out and look and see if there's any problems, and it will install it, and it will try to get the newer dependency and not break the system. And I'll show you more about that in just a second. Let me put my password. No, not the password. I'm sorry. I already put that. I'm going to type in the browser, which is Opera GX, because I'm going to look for searching for the browser. So I hit the search button, And in a moment when it pops up, you're going to see that it's actually installed. There's a check here meaning that that version is in, which is the most current version, is currently installed on my system. And the way that I installed it is it had the little green X just like these did. And what I did is I right clicked on it, and this was bold at the time, marked for installation, and these wasn't. The ones that are bold wasn't bold, but the ones that are dim were bold at the time. So in this case I wanted to install it. So I clicked on the mark for installation. Now if I need to reinstall it, I could click to reinstall, or I could remove or complete remove. So if you just want to remove it, later install it and keep some of your settings, that's what the removal is. The complete removal is if you want to remove it and remove all the settings, the complete removal is what you want to do. But now if you want to know the properties, where it's located, more information, you can choose the properties. But in this case I just marked for installation. Then I clicked the apply button, and it went out and got the dependencies that it needed. And then when I looked back over on the right hand side, there were no broken dependencies, because if there are broken dependencies, it will show up in the side over here. So once I closed it out, it was then installed on my system. To prove it, I looked at my applications internet folder, and I could see that Opera GX was placed underneath the Opera browser, meaning that I have both of them on my system. Does that mean I'm going to keep this one always? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. I could. Eventually I may remove that one. I don't know. But in this is the case, I'm just showing you how to install it and some of the features that it has on the system. Alright, the first time you run it, you'll see these screens right here that allows you to customize or to set up the browser for the first time. If you want to make changes after you go through these, you can always go in the settings and make changes later. So by default, there's lots and lots of colors that you can click the right button and keep scrolling through. I just chose the normal GX Classic default, and I hit the next. Most of the defaults I kept. The background music, background sounds, and keyboard sounds, I kept the default. But later, as I was using it, every time I would type, I hated hearing that old keyboard sound like it's coming from an old-timey typewriter. So I did go in my settings and disable the keyboard sounds. If I do keep the browser, I may, after the novelty wears off, I may turn off the background music and the background sounds. As I click and move things or do things within the browser, it does have its own noise, and you can change that noise when you change the theme as well. Eventually I may turn those off, but for now I kept the default noise settings. Here, if you're a gamer, a lot of times you may log in to Twitch or Discord, and there's icons on the left hand side on a sidebar that once you log in you can click on those and use those like if they were on a taskbar or top bar of your operating system. When you click the next button, it will take you to the next things that you can set up. You can log into the WhatsApp, you can log into like Twitter, which is now X, or some of your other social media accounts. And once you do that, you click next. Here's where you can import your data from your one of the browsers on your system. In this case, if you choose to keep this as your default browser, you may want to import all your settings from the default browser, say Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever your browser may be. You can drop down and choose a browser on your system, click import, and it will import the data from that browser to import it on this new Opera GX browser. Click next when you've done that. If you choose to import, I didn't. I'm just trying it out, kind of like trying it before I decide if I'm going to keep it. So I didn't import anything, so I just hit next. This is where I think each of these is on by default. It has a GX control. This is really for gamers, where you can control how much, you can set limits on your RAM, your CPU, and your network usage. So for the average browser usage, it really doesn't matter if you have that on or off, but for gamers, that's something that they will want to set. A built-in ad blocker, if you're not going to install an additional ad blocker, I recommend you keep this turned on so that it will block ads, so that don't take time loading ads, or so that you see a lot of intrusive ads as you're surfing the internet. The GX Cleaner, it basically does as the name implies. As things build up over time within the browser, it will clean it out, keeping your browser optimized. When you click the next button, it will just ask you two questions. Is this the first time using Opera GX? And I did choose yes. And then where did you hear about it? I chose other. And then I hit the next button. You don't have to answer those. You can just click next to continue to the last page. And on the last page of setup is if you want to install it on your phone, whether it's an iOS phone or an Android phone, you can scan the barcode and it take you to the link where you can download it, or you can find it on the Apple Play Store or the Google Play Store so that you'll have it on your phone as well as your desktop or laptop system. Click next and it will finish. One thing I decided, since you can see this is a screenshot of the browser after I installed it, is you can see that there's a title bar up there. I didn't like the looks of the title bar, even though that the minimize, maximize, and buttons did match the application programs when I load them for my system. I still didn't like that bar up there. It doesn't match the look of the browser. So what I did was I went to the settings, I clicked the little gear icon, click on settings, and opened up settings, and then I simply type that in the search bar. You can just simply copy it, put it in the search bar where it says use system title bar, and it will go through all the settings and it will use the system title bars and borders, and by default that is turned on. I switched it off, so the minimize, maximize, and close button is not going to disappear. They're going to drop down to the next line. As you can see here, there's just a search feature on that top bar, so this is just going to drop down next to it. So once immediately when I turned it off, it disappeared. I took a screenshot. The close, maximize, and minimize then goes to the left or to the right of the search. The search is now to the left of these on the browser, and so now the browser has a unique or a uniform look throughout the browser. It doesn't have that title bar that stands out, in my opinion, just like the Brave browser doesn't have the title bar. I've turned it off as well. Now once I did, I go back to the start screen or the home screen, and I didn't like the original speed dials that were on here. These are not things that I currently use. So you can hover over in the right corner, you can right click, or I think you can click the dots and it will have a drop down, and I just said move to trash and I removed them all. I click the plus to add the speed dials that I currently use, and these are the speed dials that I put on there. My web page, the DuckDuckGo, the Brave search, YouTube, Zap2it, and the weather search. Now it does have a feature you can turn on in the settings, allowing you to display the weather on your start page. It will show you current temperature, and when you hover over it will give you a current weather condition, and you can enter the city that you're currently in, so it has the current weather for that city. There are things that you can't customize that can be customized in most other browsers. For example, in a moment when I bring up the Opera browser, you're going to see that I have a button that I can click onto that brings me back to my start page or home page. There's no feature for enabling that. However, since you can install extensions from the Google Play Store, I do have a home button on the right side instead of the left. I added that as an extension, so when I clicked onto it, it brought me back to my home page. Now this button can be customized to go to anywhere. Like if I wanted to go to Brave or any other website, I could put a website here, so when I hit the home button, it goes to whatever website I put in this box. But when I go and right click on that icon, it will drop down, allowing me to put anything. So what I did is I put opera : / start page, and I put the check mark, use white icon for dark theme, and my theme is dark. So originally I couldn't see, I could tell it was there. It was kind of a dark outline. So by checking, use the white icon. If you're using a dark theme, you'll see there's a little white home there. So every time I click on it, it will take me to my home screen. You can customize that. Now let's actually take a look, and I'm going to bring up the Opera browser first, so I can compare the Opera browser with the Opera GX. Let it load, so I won't put too much into memory loading in at one time to slow it down. Let me maximize the Opera browser. Let me now open up the Opera GX. I'll click on it, and I think it tries to load in not a minimize, but a lower stage to work maximize, but then it maximizes because that's the way I have it set up. As you can see, there's no title bar across the top. It looks nice and neat here, and that's what I added onto it, and I'll talk more about that in a few moments. See, when you hover over, you'll see the three dots. If I click on the three dots, I can move the trash. I could edit, so if I wanted to change these, I could open them in a new tab, a new window, open them in a new private window, or I could put it into a different workspace. I have this bar hid by default. On the bar itself, there's a little gear icon at the bottom. You can click that and choose to hide the sidebar, especially if you're not using the sidebar. It's kind of, I don't like the sidebar to be present there if I'm not using it, because it does take up real estate. Now, as you can see, this is the background that was the default background. You can change those. In a few moments, I'll show you how. Now, listen to some of the default sounds. I don't know if you can hear it through my microphone, but as I hover over it, it has sounds throughout doing different tasks throughout the browser. Here you can see that the current temperature, it says it's mostly cloudy. The temperature within my Ubuntu Mate system says 91. This one probably just recently got updated sooner than this one does, because usually they're like a degree, sometimes they match for the city that I'm in. If you want to customize the home screen, the best way to do that is to click the little easy setup guide on the upper right hand corner. Here you can go through and choose a different color. To see all of those, you can go to see all, and it will drop down allowing you to change them. So you can go through and randomly pick them, and as it changes the colors, when you hit to get the theme, it will apply it. It doesn't immediately change. It just changes the colors that you can see, the color of the tab, the color to here and here. It doesn't change the wallpaper until I apply it. But here, well, yes it did. I'm sorry. It just was a delay. I don't know why the blues, when I'm on that, it's kind of got a little glitch there, but it is working, and maybe eventually after I close it out, I don't know why it's doing that, but I don't like the light theme, because when I do go to a light theme, that hurts my eyes. I do prefer a dark theme, especially when I'm using it more in the evening time. If you want additional themes, something that's not this look, you can go to get more themes, and there's some of the loud kind of thunder sounds. There's thousands and thousands of themes, and even topics to where you can change the subcategory that you're looking through when you're scrolling down. You're not just restricted to looking for other game-like themes. You know, you can go down and choose things or games that may apply to you. Like if someone likes the Windows XP, they may want to install that to make it look like it was during the Windows XP period. If I was to install this, the GX Christmas theme, and it's not Christmas time at the time of making this video, but it doesn't show you here, but in a few moments you can apply the sounds and things. Listen to those. Here's what it would look like at nighttime. It will look like mountains with a moon over the top of the mountains, and during the daytime it will look like the sun is shining on the mountains during the day, and it would change at night. You can click on any theme. You can go through and say install this mod, and it will show you the size of the mod itself. So if you have a lot of different themes or mods that you're installing, over time it will accumulate a lot of space on your system. So let me back up. I'm not going to apply these, but that's how you can get more to your system. Actually, I can close this tab out. Now, each time I open a tab, it goes to the start page, but if I click here, I can work with multiple tabs. I can have a different tab for a different place, and I can look back at my speed dial. Let's say I originally closed out the first one. I'm back at Brave. There's no home button here, but the extension that I have, and it's on my website, the link to it, it's called Home Button at the right top. If you click that, it will take you to the Google Chrome store, so that way that you can actually install this. And when you right click on it, you can choose options. If you put opera // start page and check that, when you hit the OK button, it will set that button so that it works as your home button. So if I go like to YouTube, and once YouTube loads, if I decide to go back to my home button or home, I could click this. But let's say, for example, let's say I'm going to click this video here. Let me turn the volume down. Now, let's say I open up another tab. See how there's a floating video. So I can keep opening tabs and working, and I can keep watching the video. That's one of the features of this particular browser. Now, if I was back at YouTube, you know, I demonstrated it already. If I decided I want to go back to my home screen, I just simply click the home button. The only thing is for muscle memory, with most browsers, my home button is here. Because I have to load it as an extension, my home button is here. Here you can hide extensions or keep them hid, or you can click that and load up and choose to pin them to the extension bar here. And that's one of them. The popper blocker is another one that I put on there, so that if I have a little thing popping up saying that, you know, this page has an ad blocker, disable your ad blocker, you can right click on it and disable that overlay and still keep using that particular site. If you wanted to go to your settings, now that was your quick settings for your home page. If you want to go to the overall settings, click this particular button here, and I think I chose it too far to the left and open up another tab. But if you click in the center of that, it will bring down a drop down menu just like it will in regular Opera. In the Opera browser, here's the Opera browser, and as you can see, you can enable the home button. So if I go like to DuckDuckGo, within the regular Opera browser, if I can go back to my start page or home page by clicking that button, it took me back to my home page. That feature cannot be enabled within the Opera GX. But just like the Opera GX, the Opera, or just like Opera, Opera GX lets you click the circle at the top and have your drop down menu which chooses any of these, or you can choose the settings. And the same thing over here, when I click on this one, I can choose settings, and I can go through and make a lot of different changes. I can even change the themes like you could here. I could click that button and it would drop down and show all the themes. If you don't like the custom or the GX wallpaper, you can click this button and use a custom wallpaper that's on your system. Here you can change more about the interface. Some of these things was on. I turned them off by default. I think use the system title bar and borders was on. And see, that's the feature I showed you about that I turned off. It had a border on by default. The top title bar, I turned that one off. This is the way I like it better. And a few other things that I changed, and I'm not going to go through here and talk about everything I changed. This is something you can play around with since it's very similar to the original Opera browser and similar to most other browsers. You can actually go through and tweak the things that you want to change yourself. Now, I think that's most of the difference between the Opera browser and the Opera GX. You know, these are very similar in look, whereas the Opera lets you customize things like this bar here is locked in with Google Chrome. I can go in here and change the default browser, search browser. It doesn't change it with this built-in search bar. You can disable the search bar where this is not shown up on the start page or home page. You'll just see these, but I did change it. So if I go up here and search, and I say search for top 5 Linux distros, instead of using Google Chrome, as you can see, it uses DuckDuckGo as the default search engine, and it will give me links telling me some of the top 5 based on websites that, like, it shows the information from this website. It gives Zorin OS, Fedora, Farron OS, Endeavor OS, and Ubuntu. So my version that I'm using is not the top 5, which doesn't surprise me. But as you can see, it uses DuckDuckGo. Back using the home screen, there I used the back. Again, you can use the built-in ad blocker, but when I did use the ad blocker, when I clicked a video, some of the videos, not all of them, it displayed an ad. So I chose to turn that feature off, and I do use, I chose AdGuard ad blocker because this is a Chromium-based browser. In the Chrome store, uBlock Origin is kind of older. I can manually install it. But instead I just chose this one from the Google Play Store because this one, along with the pop-up blocker and RedBlock, done all the things that I wanted to do to block ads, especially the ads in YouTube. That's a quick rundown, and I know it's not really quick, but that's a rundown on the Opera GX browser. If that looks like something that you would like to use, I recommend you to install it. Check it out. If you don't like it, you can uninstall it. But this, at least for those of you that are using Linux, this shows you you're not restricted just to a specific handful of browsers. There's many browsers, and most browsers that you use on other operating systems can now be used on Linux. So for those of you that are on Windows or Mac or any other operating system and thinking that Linux is locked in just to a small amount of software and things that you can use on it, it's changed over the years. You can actually install most browsers used on other operating systems on Linux. So hopefully this video has been helpful to someone, and have a great day.